morning, or depending when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always told, out of Voice Radio. So today, we're going to be taking a look at a new Mimikyu card. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. We've got a new Mimikyu, although to be fair, I mean, it is a new Mimikyu, but it looks suspiciously similar to an old Sableye. Let me explain, shall we? So starting off then, it's got 70 HP, which on the one hand is low, but on the other hand is not low enough to search out with Professor Round's lecture, so that kind of sucks. We've got a retreat cost of 1, which is low, and also means that it can be free retreated using either escape board or U-turn board, which is kind of cool. We like this. And it's got no weakness. Now, this is something we see with Mimikyu here and there. It's not the first Mimikyu we've ever seen with no weakness, but still, that's kind of cool, ladies and gentlemen. We're on board with this, I'll be honest with you. We are absolutely on board with this. Although, again, you've only got 70 HP, so it's not exactly like you're going to be staying around for a particularly long time anyway. You are a psychic Pokemon, but you're not hitting weakness on something like Mewtwo and Mew because you're not actually ever doing any damage whatsoever. You have no damaging attacks. You could use Malamar to accelerate energy, but all your attacks are single energy attacks anyway, so that doesn't really matter. Though you do get access to Spell Tag to drop a few damage counters around when you're KO'd, if that's what you're into. No, the basics here are not particularly impressive, and they are frankly not the reason we play the card. This isn't like Regigigas, where we can look at it and go, it's a basic single price Pokemon with 180 HP, I don't care what it does, we're going to play it for that alone. No. But it's got a really good, really familiar attack, which should put it towards seeing some play. Now, our translation does come from the lovely Joe over at Cerebi.net, and I've said it before and I'll say it again. If you're not checking Cerebi.net on a regular basis, I question why. For a single colourless energy, meaning it can be put into any deck at all, discard a supporter card from your hand, then use the effect of that supporter card as the effect of this attack. And that should seem rather familiar, ladies and gentlemen. That should seem rather familiar. But also kind of annoying. You see, we've kind of got Sableye. And Sableye from Stormfront kind of had this attack. And Sableye from Stormfront was great and saw a huge amount of play. And also, weirdly, no weakness. But let's count down the ways in which Sableye is just objectively better than this card. Sableye did it for 0 energy rather than 1 energy. Yeah, that's a bit better. Sableye searched your deck for a supporter and used it, whereas Mimikyu uses a supporter that has to already be in your hand, which means it's much less likely you're going to be able to get the one you want. Sableye has an ability, meaning that if you start the game with it as your active Pokemon, you guarantee to go first. And Sableye's got an attack which is so good it literally broke the Pokemon trading card game. That's the other attack, Overconfident. For 1 Darkness Energy, if the defending Pokemon has fewer remaining HP than Sableye, it does 40 instead. Doesn't sound great. I did a video all about it. I'll pop a link in the description. But that was an attack so good, it literally broke the Pokemon trading card game. So this is very reminiscent of Sableye. This is the new Sableye. This is Impersonate. It's literally called, according to Joe, Impersonate. It's not the same attack, though. Let's be clear. It is not the same attack. More expensive and harder to use because you've got to have the supporter card in your hand to discard rather than being able to search your deck and then discard it. The thing is, Sableye gave us a great roadmap way back when of why this can be so gosh darn good. Now, the quintessential reason of why Sableye was so good is Gyarados. Now, it's not the only reason we played. I'll give you 2 examples of why Sableye was so good, and that'll hopefully help to inform you why Mimikyu will be potentially really good. So the old Gyarados had an attack that for 0 energy, yeah, you'd use Sableye and Gyarados, you wouldn't need to play any energy in the deck. Did 30 damage for each Magikarp in your discard pile. So you would basically need to use Pokemon Collector to search out free basics and put them into your hand. And a lot of the time you'd use Felicity's Drawing, whereby you discarded up to 2 cards from your hand. If you discard 1 card, draw 3. If you discard 2 cards, draw 4. So you'd use Pokemon Collector to search for your Magikarp and Felicity's Drawing to discard them. So what you would very, very often see is the Gyarados player goes first, uses Sableye to impersonate a Pokemon Collector, grabs free Magikarp, and then on turn 2, oh look, it's Felicity's Drawing. And the great thing is you could start turn 2 with guaranteed free Magikarp in your hand. Later on you would have all kinds of cards like Junk Arm that you could use to discard cards from your hand. So it didn't have to be Felicity's. The point is you could just search out free of your Magikarp before you ever got going. The other way we would potentially use it would be in a lock deck, and you would use it with Cyrus's Initiative. Now, Cyrus's Initiative was a card whereby you flipped 2 coins, and as long as you got 1 heads, you could look at your opponent's hand. And for each heads you got, you could grab a card from your opponent's hand and put it on the bottom of their deck in any order. So that was a really good just disruption card. You'd search it out with Sableye and just stop your opponent setting up. Mimikyu can do that. Mimikyu can do exactly that. But you've got to have an energy on Mimikyu, and you've got to have the supporter card you want in your hand. And we've got ways to do this. I showed you a Magneton the other day, whereby you can just KO it. Now, you do need to give your opponent a prize, but then you get to search your deck for any free supporter cards. So what you can do here is KO the Magneton, grab a supporter that you want to use, and then grab another supporter specifically to use with Mimikyu. Yeah, that sounds like fun. Or indeed, we've got the new Misty supporter card, and what the new Misty's does is you get to search your deck for free supporter cards and put them into your hand. So what you can potentially do is use Misty's to go and grab free supporter cards, one of which you know you are going to immediately play using Mimikyu. So we've got ways to get them, and that's kind of cool. But the question is, what kind of supporters do we want to use here? And the answer is many of them, ladies and gentlemen, many of them. So I'll give you a couple of examples. How about Professor Oak's Setting? This is a new supporter card that was revealed a little while ago, and Professor Oak's Setting lets you search for free basic Pokemon with 60 HP or less and put them straight onto your bench. It's really quite good. The problem is they've got to go straight onto your bench. Now this works beautifully with Sableye, because what you do is you search for free basics, put them on your bench, and here's the real kicker. They are on your bench at the beginning of your next turn. So you use them with Mimikyu, and then you can immediately evolve them up on your next turn, ready to go. Or how about Jesse and James? I feel like I'm on a one-man mission to try and convince people this is a good card. It was revealed by IGN. It's going to be in Hidden Fates, and I've been thinking about it near constantly since. And I've mentioned it in a couple of videos, but it seems to work really nicely in this one. Jesse and James lets you discard 2 cards from your hand and makes your opponent discard 2 cards from their hand. Incidentally, if you discard Wheezing, your opponent discards an extra card per Wheezing. But how about you use something like a Marshadow in Expanded, or just wait until your opponent has got 4 cards remaining in hand, and you can play 1 Jesse and James to get rid of 2 cards in their hand, and then use Mimikyu to use a second Jesse and James in your hand, and then you're using 2 in 1 turn. Or maybe if you want to go completely over the top, use Lieutenant Surge's strategy, use Jesse and James, use a second Jesse and James, then use Mimikyu's attack to use a 3rd Jesse and James, and your opponent's discarding 6 cards from their hand. How often does your opponent have more than 6 cards in their hand? Especially on your turn. Not that often, ladies and gentlemen. So you can use this to help yourself get set up, which is what Sableye did, or you can use it for disruption, which is what Sableye did, or you can use it for basically anything. Before it rotated or it expanded, Ace Roller, great use for this. I've got a Pokemon, I've got two in fact, that are about to be KO'd. I need to heal them both. Play Ace Roller for the turn, use Mimikyu to use another Ace Roller, and you're off. Now you've healed them both. Second attack here, we're not going to spend much time on because it's not particularly exciting. One Psychic Energy, put 2 damage counters on 2 of your opponent's Pokemon. 2 on one, 2 on another. And sure, if you're playing something like the Wheezing from Unbroken Bonds, it's nice to spread a bit of extra damage around, etc. But honestly, it's not doing enough. Now, it is damage counters, not damage, so it will get around Mew, but generally speaking, we've just got better options for spreading damage, and it's really not something to worry about. The reason you play Mimikyu is for the first attack, and it's a spiritual successor to Stormfront Sableye in that regard. It is not Stormfront Sableye, let's be clear. But it is the best we've got at this stage. So for now, that'll have to do. I'm giving it between 3 and 4 Wassies. We don't give half Wassies, that would be barbaric. It is significantly weaker than Sableye, but I don't think that makes it a bad card, especially given Sableye rotated years ago. So there we go, ladies and gentlemen. I think this could see a little bit of love, but I would very much like to know what you think. So please do let me know in the comment section. Go nuts! Be nice. And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at the Wassy, and Twitch for some live action at twitch.tv/PTCGRadio. If you want to support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all that, head on over to patreon.com/PTCGRadio, where you can do exactly that. And please do make sure you're checking out youtube.com/WassyPlays, where we talk about a whole bunch of games that don't even have any Pokemon in. But by far the most important thing, as always, look after yourselves till next time. Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.